The rusted windmill creaked in the quiet afternoon as Jonas Hale watched dust devils dance across his farm's barren fields. 10 years had passed since the war between Earth and the Clorus Alliance ended, yet the scars remained as fresh as the day they were carved. He touched the old laser burn on his neck absently, a reminder of choices that had cost him everything. The war had been brutal. The Clorus Alliance, a multi-species empire with vastly superior technology, had swept through human colonies like wildfire. Jonas had been a sergeant then, fighting desperately to hold the line on Vega Prime. But that was before the incident that changed everything. He remembered that day with crystal clarity. His squad had been ordered to clear a bombed-out settlement, looking for enemy stragglers. Through the choking smoke and twisted metal, he'd heard a child crying. When he'd dug through the rubble, he'd found her, a blue-skinned girl no older than 7, her luminescent eyes wide with terror. She'd clutched a broken toy. Trembling as plasma, fire rained down around them. Every instinct, every piece of training, every ounce of propaganda had screamed at him to walk away. The Clorus were the enemy, monsters who wanted to enslave humanity. But looking into those terrified eyes, Jonas had seen only a frightened child who needed help. He'd smuggled her through the battle lines, using back channels and bribes to get her to a refugee transport. His actions hadn't gone unnoticed. His commanding officer had nearly court-martialed him for aiding the enemy. His squad mates had branded him a traitor. The experience had left him disillusioned with the war and humanity's role in it. Now, as Jonas watched the setting sun paint the sky blood red, a low thrum filled the air. He looked up to see a sleek black spacecraft descending toward his property, bearing the unmistakable sigil of the Clorus Imperial Guard. His heart hammered in his chest as the ship landed with precision in his field. The hatch opened with a hiss, and a figure emerged, tall, imposing, with cobalt blue skin and white hair pulled back in a severe braid. She wore the crimson uniform of a Clorus commander, decorated with medals and insignia of rank. "Jonas Hale," she called out, her voice carrying across the field with military authority. "Neo-human." Jonas stared, his mind reeling with recognition. The proud bearing, the distinctive facial markings, the luminescent eyes. This was the child he'd saved, now grown into a warrior. The woman strode toward him, flanked by 2 armored guards. Her boots left deep impressions in the dry earth. As she drew closer, Jonas could see the intricate tattoos that marked her as high nobility within the Clorus hierarchy. "I am Commander Eris of the Clorus Imperial Guard," she announced, stopping 10 feet from him. "By the laws of the Empire and the Wartime Servitude Act, you are hereby claimed as property of the House of Aerith." Jonas couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Property? What are you talking about?" Eris's expression remained cold, almost contemptuous. 10 years ago, you interfered in Clorus affairs. You took possession of Clorus property, namely myself. By our laws, this creates a debt that must be repaid. You will serve as my personal attendant, or you will face the consequences." "You've got to be kidding me," Jonas said, anger rising in his chest. "I saved your life." Something flickered in Eris's eyes, a brief crack in her icy demeanor. "Your actions, regardless of intent, violated numerous protocols. You will come with me willingly, or my guards will ensure your compliance." The 2 guards raised their plasma rifles slightly, the meaning clear. Jonas looked from them to Eris, searching for any sign of the frightened child he'd rescued. All he saw was a hardened soldier. "Fine," he said through gritted teeth. "Lead the way, Commander." As he was escorted aboard the sleek spacecraft, Jonas caught glimpses of advanced technology far beyond anything Earth possessed. The interior was all smooth curves and pulsing lights, with holographic displays showing star charts and tactical data. They placed him in a small cabin with a force field door. Through the transparent barrier, he could see Clorus crew members passing by, their expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. To them, he was just another human, a lesser being, barely above an animal in their eyes. Hours passed before Eris returned. She dismissed the guards with a wave of her hand and deactivated the force field. "We need to talk," she said, her voice different now, softer, more uncertain. Jonas remained seated on the narrow bunk, watching her warily. About what? My new career as your servant. Eris glanced at the corridor, ensuring they were alone, then stepped inside. The force field reactivated behind her. The situation is more complex than you understand, she said, her formal demeanor cracking slightly. The Clorse Alliance is fracturing. There are two main factions, the Reformists, who seek peace and cooperation with humanity, and the Purists, who believe humans should be subjugated or eliminated. And which side are you on? Jonas asked. I lead a cell within the Reformist movement, Eris admitted. But I must maintain the appearance of a hardline purist to avoid suspicion. That's why I had to bring you here under the pretense of servitude. Jonas studied her face, looking for deception. So, this is all an act? Not entirely, she said. The laws I cited are real. If I hadn't claimed you, the purists would have. And they would not have been merciful. Why me? Why now? Eris sat on the edge of the bunk, maintaining a careful distance. Because I never forgot what you did. You showed me the humans weren't the monsters our propaganda claimed. That act of kindness changed everything. My perspective, my goals, my entire life's purpose. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing a small scar on her forearm. This is from when you pulled me from the rubble. Every time I see it, I remember that there's another way forward. Jonas felt his anger ebbing, replaced by confusion and curiosity. What do you want from me? I need your help, Eris said. There's a prison camp on the moon of Kepler, 452b. Hundreds of human prisoners are being held there, subjected to experiments and forced labor. The purists plan to use them as leverage in upcoming negotiations with Earth. And you want to free them? Yes, but I can't do it alone. I need someone who understands human psychology, someone who can coordinate with the prisoners from the inside, someone the purists won't suspect. Jonas leaned back, processing this information. So I go from fake servant to real spy. You'll have to maintain the appearance of servitude, Eris explained. But you'll have access to areas most humans never see. You can gather intelligence, make contacts, prepare for the rescue operation. And if we're caught, Eris's expression hardened. Then we'll both be executed as traitors. The purists don't show mercy to those who challenge their ideology. Jonas considered his options. Return to his lonely farm and pretend the universe wasn't falling apart around him, or take a chance on helping hundreds of people while possibly making a real difference in the post-war order. When do we start? He asked. A ghost of a smile crossed Eris's face. We already have. Welcome to the resistance, Jonas hailed. The next few days were a blur of preparation and subterfuge. Jonas learned to play his role as Eris's servant, bowing and scraping in public, while secretly memorizing guard rotations and security protocols. Eris treated him with calculated disdain when others were watching, but in private moments, she briefed him on Clorse politics and the intricacies of their technology. The prison camp was located in a crater on Kepler, 452b's largest moon, protected by energy shields and automated defense systems. As they approached in Eris's command ship, Jonas got his first look at the facility, a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and towers, surrounded by guard posts and patrol routes. Remember, Eris whispered as they prepared to disembark, you're here as my personal attendant. Keep your eyes down, speak only when spoken to, and observe everything. Jonas nodded, adjusting the simple gray uniform that marked him as property. A thin metal collar around his neck completed the humiliating ensemble, a tracking device that would monitor his every move. They were met at the landing pad by the camp's commandant, a hulking Clorse male with mottled green skin and 4 arms. He greeted Eris with formal respect, but eyed Jonas with undisguised contempt. Commander Eris, the commandant rumbled. We're honored by your inspection. Though I must say, bringing a human pet into a secure facility is unusual. Are you questioning my judgment, Commandant Vorik? Eris asked, her voice sharp as a blade. Of course not, Commander, Vorik replied quickly. Please, allow me to show you our operations. As they toured the facility, Jonas's heart sank. The conditions were worse than he'd imagined. Humans crowded into small cells, many showing signs of malnutrition and abuse. The lucky ones worked in the mines or factories. The unlucky ones were subjects in medical experiments that turned Jonas's stomach. He caught glimpses of familiar faces, soldiers he'd served with, civilians from colonies he'd helped defend. They looked at him with a mixture of hope and suspicion, unsure what to make of a human walking freely among their captors. That night, in the quarters assigned to Eris, they finalized their plan. The rescue would happen during the camp's monthly supply run, when security would be focused on the incoming ships rather than the prisoners. I've arranged for a sympathetic pilot to accidentally damage the shield generators, Eris explained, projecting a holographic map of the facility. That will create a window for the prisoners to reach the emergency shuttles here and here. Jonas studied the layout, memorizing every corridor and access point. What about the guards? I have loyalists among the staff, Eris said. When the time comes, they'll create diversions and disable key systems. But we'll need the prisoners organized and ready to move at a moment's notice. I can handle that, Jonas assured her. Give me 48 hours to make contact with the resistance leaders inside. Eris nodded, then surprised it by reaching out to touch his arm. Jonas, I want you to know, what you did for me all those years ago, it changed everything. Not just for me, but potentially for both our species. I just did what anyone should have done, Jonas replied. But most wouldn't have, Eris said softly. That's what makes you different. That's why I knew I could trust you with this. The next 2 days were a careful dance of deception and preparation. Jonas used his position as Eris's servant to move throughout the camp, slipping messages to key prisoners and coordinating with the internal resistance. He learned that the prisoners had already been planning an escape attempt, but lacked the resources and outside support to succeed. Meanwhile, Eris worked to position her loyalists and misdirect the purest attention. She filed reports praising the camp's security measures while secretly sabotaging them, and arranged for additional supplies that would aid in the escape. On the night of the operation, tension crackled through the air like electricity. Jonas could feel it in the way the guards moved, in the nervous glances of the prisoners, in the tight set of Eris's jaw as she gave him final instructions. Remember, she said, once the shields go down, you have 15 minutes before backup generators kick in. Get as many people to the shuttles as possible. Jonas nodded, checking the small plasma pistol she'd smuggled to him. What about you? I'll be in the command center, making sure our escape route stays clear, Eris replied. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong, Jonas interrupted. We've planned for everything. Eris smiled sadly. No plan survives contact with the enemy. If I don't make it, promise me you'll continue the work. The reformists need allies among humans if we're going to build a lasting peace. Before Jonas could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. But these weren't the planned diversions. Something else was happening. Commandant, a guard shouted, bursting into the room. Purist fleet detected on long-range scanners. They're demanding to board and conduct a loyalty inspection. Eris's face paled. They know, she whispered. Somehow they found out about the plan. Jonas's mind raced. We can't abort now. The prisoners are already mobilizing. If the purists find us in the middle of a prison break, they'll slaughter everyone, Eris said. We need to. An explosion rocked the facility, cutting her off. Through the window, they could see one of the shield generators erupting in flames. Looks like our pilot came through early, Jonas said grimly. Ready or not, we're doing this. Eris straightened her uniform, her moment of doubt passing. Then let's give them a fight they'll never forget. They split up, Eris heading for the command center, while Jonas made his way to the cell blocks. Chaos had already erupted. Prisoners were overwhelming guards, seizing weapons, and making for the shuttle bays. Jonas quickly found the resistance leaders and helped coordinate the evacuation. Shuttles are prepped and ready, someone shouted. But we've got purist dropships incoming. Jonas looked up to see dark shapes descending through the atmosphere, disgorging armored troops. The purists had arrived in force, and they weren't taking prisoners. What followed was a running battle through the corridors of the prison camp. Jonas fought alongside former enemies, humans, and sympathetic chlors working together against the purest forces. Plasma fire scorched the walls as they defended the evacuation routes, buying time for shuttles to launch. In the command center, Eris was fighting her own battle. She'd managed to override the facility's weapons systems, turning them against the Purist ships, but she was trapped. Purist soldiers were cutting through the blast doors, and her loyal guards were falling one by one. Jonas received her final transmission over a stolen communicator. "Get clear, Jonas. I'll hold them as long as I can." "Negative," he replied, already changing direction. "I'm coming for you. Don't be a fool. The mission is saving people," Jonas interrupted. "All people, including you." He fought his way to the command center, arriving just as the blast doors gave way. Eris stood alone amid fallen guards, her uniform torn and bloodied, still defiant as. Purist soldiers poured into the room. Jonas didn't hesitate. He opened fire, catching the Purist by surprise. In the confusion, he reached Eris's side. "I told you to leave," she said, but there was gratitude in her eyes. "Yeah, well, I've never been good at following orders," Jonas replied, helping her to her feet. "Can you walk?" She nodded, wincing. "There's an emergency escape pod in my private quarters. If we can reach it." They never got to finish the conversation. A plasma bolt caught Eris in the shoulder, spinning her around. Jonas caught her before she fell, returning fire with one hand while supporting her with the other. Together, they stumbled through the corridors, Purist soldiers in pursuit. Jonas could hear shuttles launching in the distance. At least some of the prisoners had made it out. But their own chances were looking increasingly slim. They reached Eris's quarters just as another explosion rocked the facility. The escape pod was there, sleek and waiting. Jonas helped Eris inside, then turned to face their pursuers. "What are you doing?" Eris demanded. "Get in. Someone needs to launch this thing manually," Jonas said. "And someone needs to buy you time to get clear." "No." Eris tried to rise, but her injuries were too severe. "Jonas, please." "Hey," he said softly, meeting her eyes. 10 years ago, I saved a scared little girl. Today, I'm saving a leader who can change the galaxy. Seems like a fair trade to me." Before she could protest further, he slammed his hand on the launch control. The pod's doors sealed, and it shot away from the crumbling facility. Jonas turned to face the approaching Purist soldiers, plasma pistol ready. He managed to take down 3 before a stun blast caught him in the chest. As consciousness faded, his last thought was of Eris's face. Not the cold commander, but the determined reformer who represented hope for both their species. When Jonas awoke, he was in a medical bay unlike any he'd seen before. The architecture was chlorous, but somehow different, more organic, more welcoming. A human doctor was checking his vitals, while chlorous medical staff worked alongside her. "Welcome back," the doctor said. "You've been out for 3 days." "Where am I?" Jonas asked, his throat dry. "Coalition Medical Frigate Harmony," she replied. "You're safe." The rescue operation was a success. Most of the prisoners made it out, and Commander Eris's actions exposed the Purist conspiracy. The reformists have taken control of the Chlor's government. Jonas processed this information. "And Eris?" Recovering in the next room, the doctor said with a smile. "She's been asking about you constantly." As if on cue, the door opened and Eris entered. She moved stiffly, her arm in a sling, but her eyes were bright with determination. "Jonas Hale," she said formally, "by the authority vested in me as Supreme Commander of the Reformed Chlor's Alliance, I hereby release you from any obligations of servitude." Then her expression softened. "Thank you for everything." Jonas sat up slowly. "So what happens now?" "Now we build something new," Eris replied. "The reformists have proposed a joint council with Earth's government. Equal representation, shared resources, unified defense against external threats. It won't be easy. There's still a lot of mistrust on both sides." "Sounds like you'll need help," Jonas observed. Eris raised an eyebrow. "Are you volunteering?" Jonas thought about his farm, about the quiet life he'd built to escape the memories of war. Then he thought about the prisoners they'd freed, about the chance to build something better from the ashes of conflict. "Yeah," he said, I guess I am. Eris smiled. A real smile this time, warm and genuine. She extended her uninjured hand to help him up. Then stand, human. We have work to do. As Jonas took her hand and rose to his feet, he realized that this was what he'd been searching for all along. Not escape from the past, but a way to make it mean something. The war had taken so much from both of them, but had also brought them together, forging an alliance that could reshape the galaxy. Later, as they stood on the observation deck watching the stars, Eris turned to him with a mischievous glint in her eye. You know, she said, technically, you never did kneel. Jonas laughed. Still hung up on that. Royal protocols are very important, she said with mock seriousness. I may have to insist. How about a compromise? Jonas suggested. Partners don't kneel to each other. They stand together. Eris considered this, then nodded. I suppose that's acceptable. For now, they stood side by side, human and Clorse, watching the vast expanse of space that held both their futures. The galaxy was changing, and they would help guide that change, not as master and servant, not as enemies or allies, but as equals working toward a common goal. The blue-skinned girl Jonas had saved had become a leader who could save millions. And in doing so, she had saved him as well. From isolation, from bitterness, from the belief that one person couldn't make a difference. Together, they would prove that compassion could triumph over prejudice, that understanding could bridge any divide, and that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change the course of history. The war was over. The real work was just beginning.